Hey everybody. Most of us here in Indian country are well aware of MMIW and MMIP, missing and murdered indigenous women and people, and the high and proportionate rate of our indigenous women and people that go missing every year all across the country in the different Native communities. So the Not Invisible Act, which was completed by the Not Invisible Act Commission, a report, it was completed at the end of 2023 and put on a lot of different federal websites to highlight the Commission's report on the issues surrounding Native communities and all the issues that come with dealing with the MMIW and MMIP in all of our different communities. So it was a shock that that report was noticed to have been removed from all the different federal websites. And one can only conclude that this is most likely a result of President Trump or Donald Trump's DEI initiative, where he's basically trying to rewrite history and scrub anything within the federal government's purview or anything that he has control over the federal government, and literally trying to remove anything that that they feel has to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion, which unfortunately they are lumping Native Americans into that classification, even though we all know that Native Americans are a political class and not a racial class and should not be affected. However, things like these are popping up all the time, just like they removed the code talkers from the Department of Defense website. And this is just another issue, a big issue that has affected Indian country for many decades now. And the most startling thing about this is that literally just 2 weeks ago, the new director of the FBI, Kash Patel, gave a press release in which he talked about the FBI and the Department of Justice commitment to working with Native communities to try to help resolve some of the MMIW and MMIP issues that have been surrounding our company. So there is a lot of hope that Kash Patel was going to use his position to try to address the issues affecting Indian country. But sometimes it's hard to take things like that serious whenever an incident like this occurs, where the Not Invisible Act Commission's report was scrubbed or has been scrubbed from all the different federal websites, basically removing all the details and all the hard work and all the data that report provided to Indian country. So, but there's a bigger issue at root here, and it's one that's not really talked about very often. But a lot of the reasons why MMIW and MMIP is such a big issue in Indian country really goes back to Supreme Court rulings and the lack of federal legislation that would enable Native communities to deal with some of these issues, because it's widely known that a lot of the MMIW and MMIP are a result of non-Native people that are the ones who are committing these crimes against Indigenous women and against Indigenous men and people in general. So the laws that are currently in place prevent Indian communities from prosecuting non-Indians within their jurisdiction. And this goes all the way back to a 1978 Supreme Court ruling, Oliphant versus the Squamish tribe, in which the Supreme Court ruled that Native Americans, Indians, cannot criminally prosecute a non-Indian. And as a result of, for the decades that have followed, even until now, to me, that's like a signal to non-Indians that they can go to reservations in the Indian country and commit crimes without fear or worrying of being prosecuted by the Indian tribe. Now, supposedly the federal government can prosecute these non-Indians, but unfortunately, the data has shown that that just simply was not occurring in Indian country. And so you have this gap where the Supreme Court says Indians can't even protect their own communities from by criminally prosecuting non-Indians, and you have Congress that would have the power to fix that, and they just simply have not. because of this stereotype, this wrongful stereotype that Native American communities cannot run law enforcement properly. They can't run courts properly. Of course, all these are incorrect. We know that. Some of our court systems and law enforcement programs are very good, are very productive. They do very well. The only thing that's holding Native communities back in this regard is the Supreme Court ruling and Congress itself. Now we know that the Violence Against Women Act that was initially passed back in 1994 and has been reauthorized several times, including as lately as 2022, have helped Indian country when it comes to giving them the authorization to criminally prosecute non-Indians that commit sexual assault or dating violence or domestic violence against Indian women. But that's limited. Indian country needs the full ability, just like any county sheriff, they can prosecute anybody that commits a crime in their county. Any local police can prosecute and convict anybody that commits crimes in their county. The state can prosecute anybody that commits crimes in their state. But yet in Indian country, tribes are limited and prevented from prosecuting non-Indians that commit crimes in their jurisdiction on the reservation. And that is something that simply has got to change. Indian tribes have got to be put on the same parity with state and local law enforcement and court systems when it comes to protecting their own communities. So one of these days we're going to get there. We're not there yet. Hopefully there will be enough indigenous people that will not only get out and vote in upcoming elections, but also more indigenous people simply have got to start running more for these elected offices and positions, because it's the ones that are making the laws that can make a difference and that impact what Native and indigenous tribes can do within their own communities and their own reservations. So if you like what you hear and see, give me a like and a follow, and I'll continue to keep everybody